myself. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Chesapeake Foodshed Network's Coffee Talk series, An Equal Exchange. My name is Yona Sipos, and I direct program development for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network, which is coordinated through Local Concepts, LLC, a consulting firm providing the development and backbone support for the CFN, or the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. I'm joined today by Christy Gabbard, the owner of Local Concepts and network coordinator of the CFN, and Sonia Kiner, CFN Local Concepts Communications Director, and they're both working behind the scenes. Before our main event, I'll provide a brief overview of the CFN and the Coffee Talks. So the mission of the CFN is to catalyze connections and collaborations that build a sustainable, resilient, inclusive, and equitable regional food system in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We believe that by catalyzing connections and collaborations, we are better positioned to accelerate change in our food system. The Chesapeake Foodshed Network has been developing over the last 2.5 years, and really it was spurred by the recognition that there was a great deal of extraordinary work happening across the Chesapeake region, but there was no entity intentionally trying to build connections, trust, and relationships among those out there doing the work. And so, as you see in this picture of our network building blocks, the foundation of our network is really all about building those connections, sharing information and knowledge, getting to know one another, and building relationships and trust, with the idea that as we know one another better, we might over time see opportunities to move up that pyramid ultimately toward collaborative action and collective impact. If you are part of or support the extraordinary work already in process, as well as the vision of a sustainable, resilient, equitable, and inclusive regional food system, please participate in the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. The CFN is open and free of charge to organizations, businesses, funders, agencies, and other change agents working across the Chesapeake watershed to build a stronger and more resilient food system. Visit chesapeakefoodshed.net for more information. We encourage conversation and connection in a multiple of ways, including via social media. Please note the usernames and hashtags on the slide footers. We would love to see your tweets. And now on to the Coffee Talks. These are a program funded by Town Creek Foundation and the Prince Charitable Trusts, designed to help the network catalyze connections around food system topics. We partner with resource experts who provide a quick learning opportunity through a webinar presentation. And during the webinar, the moderated Q&A, and in the follow-up materials, we identify ways for people to continue to engage and dig in deeper around that particular topic. Today's Coffee Talk is an opportunity to learn about insights and strategies related to local, fresh, and scratch-cooked food within Maryland and Virginia. We are so delighted to be hosting this webinar, and we are not the only ones. At last count, over 100 people from across the US had registered for this Coffee Talk, so thank you all for your interest. Finally, before introducing the speakers and providing a brief insight into their bios, I'll just note that if you have questions or comments during the webinar, please type them into the questions box in your GoToWebinar or in your Zoom control panel. Zoom is still new for us, sorry. We're still getting used to it. Christy will be collecting your questions and moderating a Q&A session with presenters after their presentations. And then next week, the CFN will email out the recording of this conversation, the slide deck, follow-up resources, and a post-webinar survey. So finally, the reason that we are here. Today's presentation is on moving schools towards local, scratch-cooked food, insights from Healthy School Food Maryland's school food environment grades, and strategies from Fairfax County Public Schools Food Nutrition Service Director is here. And we are absolutely delighted to have Lindsey Parsons and Rodney Taylor, and I'll just read out brief bios before I turn it over to them. Lindsey Parsons is the founder and coordinator of Healthy School Food Maryland, a coalition of organizations and businesses working for whole, real, local, and safe foods for children in Maryland school cafeterias. Lindsey's also co-founder and executive director of Real Food for Kids Montgomery, a parent and student advocacy group in Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. Rodney Taylor is the Director of Food and Nutrition Services of Virginia's Fairfax County Public Schools. He has 40 years of experience in the food service industry and is an award-winning, noted pioneer and expert in farm-to-school salad bars. He is particularly known for the Farmers Market Salad Bar program, started in 1997 while working in California. We are so delighted to have you both. Thank you for your time and for being willing to share your expertise. And Lindsey, as you get prepared to get your slides up, I'll just launch for everybody a quick poll designed just to find out a little bit about who is in the audience. And so all of you who are on your computers should now see the poll up in front of you. I'll read out the question: what is your role in regard to school, food service, or advocacy? And then there are a number of options there that we would be grateful if you reviewed and voted. We'd love to see who's in the audience. And I'll leave it up for another 15 or 20 seconds to give people a chance to look through. There are a lot of options: working in school food service, working professionally in school food advocacy, parents engaging in school food advocacy, teachers or school administrators, community members, or those interested in school food advocacy but not yet involved. I don't seem to be getting too many responses. If anybody's trying to vote and is having trouble, please, you can use the chat to let me know. Otherwise, we'll give people just another few seconds. Okay, I'm going to close that up. And it looks like there is a range, but definitely a lot of people interested in school food advocacy, but not involved. Over a third of our participants, it looks like, are in that category. Yes, we'll review those and share more after the webinar. Lindsey, I see that your presentation is up, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks so much, and thanks everybody for joining us today. So briefly, I and another mom started Real Food for Kids Montgomery 4 years ago because we wanted to see healthier food in our schools. And then 2 years later, we wanted to impact our schools by trying to do statewide legislation. So we built the coalition Healthy School Food Maryland. And that is a coalition that would, after trying for statewide legislation for 2 years, we decided that a better use of our meager resources would be to do school food grades, school food environment grades for the 24 school districts in Maryland. And so rather than mandating changes to school food, we thought that by bringing the public eye to the question of school food and the issues surrounding it, we could bring about changes that way. So just a quick view of who our coalition partners are. Let me just point out that amongst them are the Maryland Public Health Association, and then the Montgomery County Food Council and the Prince George's County Food Equity Council, and a number of other statewide and even national groups. So to get into a little more detail about what the school food environment grades were about, we built a rubric of 12 items, and the items on that were based on both our past legislative efforts from the bills that we had tried to pass in the two years that we worked on statewide legislation, as well as the parent priority surveys that Real Food for Kids Montgomery does every year in Montgomery County with our, at this point, we have about 3,000 active email addresses of parents and community members. And then also just feedback from the other coalition partners on what they wanted to see on the rubric. And let me go into a little bit of detail about each one so you understand better what it meant to get a grade. After the grades were released in December, we got a decent amount of media coverage and a lot of questions from the media, and a lot of them centered around, well, why did this county do better than that county, and what did this county do wrong to get the worst grade? And it really isn't that the food in one county is so drastically different from the food in another county. For the most part, everybody is serving more or less the same processed, reheated food, but there are some counties that are going above and beyond that and doing scratch cooking and putting in salad bars. But it's really that there's 12 items in the rubric and they all have 4 points. And so if you're in each one, you're just a little bit less proactive than the other counties, then ultimately over the whole rubric, you'll do worse. So to go into each item, the first item on the rubric was about access to potable water and policies requiring water bottles on supply lists. So the minimum would be to comply with federal law, which would be to have an access to potable water in the cafeteria. And the state of Maryland allows that to be in the hallway outside. Moving up the ladder, that if you have the drinking fountains or water source directly in the cafeteria, so children don't have to raise their hands and sit and wait to be called on to go out and get a drink of water. And then the highest level was if you actually have a policy that specifically says that children can carry water bottles, because there are some individual schools within districts that have policies that actually prohibit the carrying of water bottles. The next item was related to local produce and farm to school programs. And that was based on the USDA Farm to School Census from 2015, which is actually 2013-2014 school year data. So, and it's all self-report. So basically they ask how much money do you spend on food in general, and then how much money do you spend on food locally? And note that each district defines local by themselves. And so some people may say that's within 50 miles, others may say that's within 200 miles. So there's a lot of variety there, but the highest grade in the rubric was for 25% of local procurement or a farm to school program of 4 weeks or more. Then the next one was related to whether each school district had a policy prohibiting artificial colors, flavors, and other chemicals in school food. And for the highest score on the rubric, you would have to have a policy that prohibited all artificial colors and then some other chemicals, basically showing that you had considered it and that it was in your wellness policy. At the lowest level, you would just be, or the lowest grade that you could get 0, but if you got a 1, you would be complying with federal law. And in general, that's the case for most of the rubric areas. If you're complying with federal law, you're getting a 1 on each rubric. So this is really pushing school systems to go well beyond federal law. The next item was related to vending. So right now there is a federal rule called Smart Snacks in Schools that governs what can be sold in vending machines during the school day and until 30 minutes after it. So it's from midnight until 30 minutes after the end of the school day. And that means that no individual snack can be more than 200 calories. It can't be more than 35% sugar by weight. It can't be more than 35% fat or 10% saturated fat. And then there's limits on sodium. And then there's limits on calories in beverages. So you can't sell things like sodas or full calorie Gatorades. And to get a very high score on this, to get a top score on this category, you would either have no vending machines, or you would have machines that are compliant with those rules, the Smart Snacks in Schools rules, 24 hours a day rather than just until 30 minutes after the end of the school day. Then moving down, the next item was about wellness committees or school health councils. So we found in our research that every district in Maryland did in fact have either a wellness committee or a school health council, but there was a wide variety in whether it was typically a school health council is a CDC model council where you have people from the health department and people from the school system, typically the nurses, the PE people, the food services people. And for us, the real issue is it transparent? Do people know that this council exists? And is there a way for parents to get involved and or to contact and lobby the people who are on that committee so that they can see the kinds of policy changes that parents want? And so the highest level would be if you had a committee whose information and whose members are posted on the web, and 50% of them are non-employees of the school system and 25% of them are parents. The next item down was related to scratch cooking. And we would love to see more and more scratch cooking in schools and moving away from this model of processed reheated foods. And so our highest criteria there was at 50% scratch cooking. And the lowest criteria to get a 1 was at least one entree was partially scratch cooked. Say, for example, the sauce on the spaghetti would be made from scratch. And we had at least a couple districts that hit the top grade on that. Then the next item was about variety of meals. And really with that, what we were trying to hit upon was how do we catalog districts that pretty much just have a repeating menu of pizza and burgers and fries and hot dogs and processed chicken. And the best way that we could figure out to do that was to count up the variety of meals over the course of a month. So we used the elementary school menus from April of 2016, and we counted, and saw what the range was. And so the top range was if you had 30 meals or more offered. The next item was about the existence and quality of the salad bars. And the top grade would be for a school system that had salad bars in all schools. And then the next highest grade would be if you had all salad bars in all one level of schools, say all elementary schools or all high schools. And they had to have at least a minimum of 4 vegetables and be accessible to students who are on free and reduced meals. So they have to be part of that program. It can't be just an a la carte or a separately paid item. The next item on the rubric was about a la carte foods, which are items that are sold in addition to the school food, the federally reimbursable school meal. So that would be like, typically those are baked chips, they're 50% whole grain granola bars or cookies, they are like Welch's fruit snacks, and low-fat ice creams, things like that. So they're just sort of modified junk food that meets the federal rules. So the biggest issue with those is that most parents don't realize they're for sale. So what we're asking for at the highest level is that there is a list of those items on the website by brand name and flavor, so that you understand exactly what's being sold in the cafeteria to your child on their lunch account, and not just think that the meal is the only thing available. And then also you can also put it on your menu. And one thing we noticed was that some school districts would share a list, but it would say things like whole grain chips instead of Doritos. And we know when a parent sees Doritos, they understand exactly what that is. Whole grain chips sounds it's a little bit of neutral washing, and we want real transparency about those things. And then the next item was about transparency about the nutrition facts and the ingredient lists. So some school districts share some limited nutrition information, such as the basic calories on items and carbohydrates and things like that, to help children who are on insulin and have to calculate how many carbohydrates they're eating. But what a lot of parents want to find out is sugar, and so without the complete nutrition facts label, you don't get that, or several other nutrients. And then also ingredient lists, so you know exactly what is in the food that your kids are eating. And then the next one was about a policy limiting sugar in school foods, and I'm going to show you that one in a minute, so I won't go into detail. And then the last one was about junk food marketing, and that covered items, 9 specific ways that junk food could be marketed. And in this case, junk food would be defined as food that is not compliant with the Smart Snacks in School standards. So there were 9 specific ways, like corporate incentive programs and posters and in-school TV and capital items like scoreboards and restaurant incentive programs and things like that. So if you laid out those 9, or if you said every way of marketing is forbidden, then you would have gotten the full score on that. So here's an example of a rubric question on sugar, and it was, please rank the existence of a policy limiting added sugar in the school system. So the highest level was if they met the 2015 dietary guidelines for Americans, where no more than 10% of calories could come from added sugar, and that had to include both the meal and any a la carte snacks that a child was purchasing from the cafeteria. And then moving down, if there was a policy that was more strict than the federal standard of 35% sugar by weight, then you would get the next highest. Further down, if you complied with federal law for the snacks, then you would get a 2, and then a 1 would be either you had a policy that was less strong than federal law, or you had no policy, but you were following the law nonetheless. So a lot of people would say, well, we don't have it in our wellness policy, but of course we're following it. So that would just get them a 1. And then 0, of course, if they weren't meeting federal law. But we didn't find in any of our rubric categories that anyone in the state was not following federal law. So where we got the data, to start with, we went through the wellness policies and then the regulations or procedures for all of the school districts and any other documents we found that would bring to light any other questions we had. We looked at the school lunch menus from April of 2016 for all of the districts with the help of some interns from the University of Maryland dietetics program. And then we went to each school food services website and looked through their what was available and transparent on that website. And then we had interviews with every school food service director or the person that they sent us to. And then we, in some cases, spoke with the wellness committee or school health council chairs if the school food service director couldn't tell us about the composition of that committee. And then in some cases, we had parent reports that contradicted information that we had gotten, or we personally experienced it in our own school districts. And so in that case, we would call individual schools to verify the information that we'd gotten. And then finally, once we completed all the rubrics, we sent them to the food service directors to ask for corrections. And we had a couple districts who did ask for us to change their grade in a couple areas. So we took that into consideration and made some changes. So briefly, this is the school food grades website on our website. And just note that looking at just the grades is not, that's only tipping the surface. You need to hit this button right here and go to the full scorecard, which leads you to a PDF document. And you can see the full grades across every rubric area for each school district. And note that we graded on a normal curve, which is why there's a lot of C's and not a lot of A's or B's or D's or F's, because that's just the way a normal curve works. If we had just given straight grades, everybody would have failed, which wouldn't have been fair since this was the first year and these are new criteria that the school systems are learning about. But we did decide to do a normal curve because that means that if any school district takes this seriously and tries to improve their grade, every other school district will be impacted by their improvements. So they'll always have to compete against each other to continue to improve and stay at the top of the list. And then also note down at the bottom, there's a link to the project documentation. And there you can go to a Google Docs website where we have all of the rubrics for each district, and we tried to list exactly who we spoke to for every question and a link to any backup documentation so that it's all very well documented, that it's all accurate information. And you can also access all of the wellness policies that we collected from the different districts and any other documentation. And that is my contact information. You can go to that top healthyschoolfoodmaryland.org to access the school food grades complete scorecard, and you can reach me at that email.
Lindsey, thank you so much. This is Christy Gabbard. I'm so impressed with the work that you all have done to make this information so easy to digest, as well as easy to understand, understand sort of the landscape across the area. So I commend you on all this fabulous project, and
thank you.
Thank you for sharing the process that you've used for pulling the information together. We do have, my understanding is we have about 5 minutes for questions now, and we do have a question about the data for the grades gathered. So how is the data for the grades gathered? And even though you may have touched on this a little bit, maybe just give a little bit more guidance. And then was this a survey that was sent to each school in every district? And how many schools completed the survey?
So we did not send the survey to each district. What we decided to do for the first year was collect the data. So we would call up each district, and so I mean, we collected what we could just by looking at websites and wellness policies. And then we called up each district and we said, we're from Healthy School Food Maryland. We're collecting data on each school district. If they asked further, we said, it's for the School Food Environment Grades Project. And then we just asked them questions. And so we never sent them the survey to fill out and just give their own answers. We really wanted to make sure that that we were getting spontaneous and honest answers, and that there was documentation to back up those answers too.
Great. And how long did the process take? Susan shared that they've been trying to accomplish something similar, but they're finding a lot of roadblocks. So maybe could you talk about not just the process, but maybe some of the roadblocks you also experienced?
So the idea came about probably 2 years before we even were able to implement it. And honestly, if it hadn't been for the interns that I had, it would have been impossible, because I think I had one intern working probably 20 hours a week all summer calling food service directors, because it's very hard to get through and to get calls back. And you'll see that there's one item that's incomplete, and that director just refused to speak to me because he was new to the district and didn't want to give inaccurate information. But after being there for 4 months, I would assume he should have known whether they were scratch cooking or not. And those items that really could only be answered directly by the food service director. So that's the biggest roadblock, is just people who are hard to reach, don't have phone numbers, don't answer the phone. That was really the biggest challenge. Also, you can have challenges sometimes finding wellness policies for different districts. you have to know how to go into board docs and look for policies and procedures, and also just understanding that there's both, in almost every district, there's usually a wellness policy plus either a procedure or a regulation that spells out the details of the policy. So if you just stop at the policy, then you're probably not getting all the information that you need.
Thanks, Lindsey. And then if we have time for 2 more, that's great. But let me quickly ask you this, and then we'll do a time check. But how have you worked with Montgomery County schools to improve school lunches? And what specific changes have been made to the food in the Montgomery County schools?
So we started with reaching out to the Director of Food and Nutrition Services and letters, meetings. We tried to reach out to the superintendent after that, and he would never meet with us. He subsequently was fired, and we have a new superintendent now. And then we reached out to the school board members and continued to, build relationships with those folks. And then we did a big petition. We've done testimonies in front of the school board, and we've grown our grassroots by, in every school, if we get one parent, we ask that parent to send a message to other parents in their school via their listserv or their Facebook page or PTA newsletter to try and get other parents. And then of course we tabled at different places to build up our grassroots, so that we got to the point where we had parents in, I think we have parents in 193 out of the 203 schools in the district. And then we have representatives to each school who send out messages on our behalf and start wellness committees at individual schools and try and bring about changes to things like the a la carte foods and parties and fundraisers, and get salad bars put in and things like that. So the things that we've accomplished in our district, we've got that delay in vending until 30 minutes after the end of the school day put in before it became federal law, and we got rid of strawberry milk. We got a policy around artificial colors and some other chemicals implemented for future contracts. And we got them to start a wellness committee that met the criteria that we had laid out, that 50% of non-school system employees and 25% parents. And I sit on that committee now, and we're in the process of rewriting our own wellness policy. So a number of things have changed in our district.
Wow, that's so impressive. Thank you so much, Lindsey. We do have a couple more questions. I'm going to hold on to those until after Rodney has had a chance to share his information. And folks, if you come across think of other questions along the way, feel free to post them, and we will try to get to those at the end. And if not, we will follow up with our resource experts afterwards. So again, Lindsey, thank you so much for sharing this information. Really helpful. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rodney. Rodney Taylor with Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia.
Let's see. Hello, everyone. It's good to participate in this. My name is Rodney Taylor, and I'm going to here we go. So I'm the Director of Food and Nutrition Services with the Fairfax County Public Schools. Here's a little information on the district. We're the 10th largest district in the country with 185,000 students, 196 schools. And I was hired a year and a half ago to reform school food in Fairfax, and we have started that process. For those of you who do know about me, you know that I've spent the past 20 years implementing salad bars in 3 school districts, this being the third, the first in 1997 in the Santa Monica Malibu School District. And the goal was to improve children's health by encouraging consumption of nutritious food. This came about from the School Meals Initiative back in 1994, and the data starts showing that our kids were obese, and that if we didn't do anything, that they would live shorter lifespans than the previous generation for the first time in history, and that we would see more incidents of diabetes, that 2 in 3 kids would have diabetes in their lifetime. And if you happen to be or 2 and 3, or 1 and 3, I'm sorry. And if you happen to be African American, Latino, or American India, it was 2 and 3. And that should be startling to all of us. And so I been working on salad bars, did a lot of work around it. There's been studies that prove that kids will consume, that you can modify eating behaviors, and you can teach children to be lifelong healthy eaters. And so until someone comes up with a better way, I've stuck with farm to school. It's a way to provide access for low-income kids who may not have supermarkets in their neighborhood or may be prohibited by income, and we teach every child. So the salad bar is a vehicle, but there's many prongs to that, bringing farmers to the classroom and taking kids to the farm, utilizing our nutrition coordinator as well with our partners in the community. We feel like instead of being the butt of jokes, that a nutrition program can be a catalyst for change in the community. And for me personally, it gave me, I found my passion, and it gave my job purpose. And so I've stuck with it. It's a way of supporting small farmers by creating an untapped market. And we've shown that we've been able to do those things. And so how the program works, and let me apologize up front because there's a lot of information here that I won't be able to cover, but what I wanted to do is make my presentation available to everyone. So I left everything in so that you'll have access to this. And if you have any questions, my contact information is there. Of course, I'll answer questions at the end. But it's simply, we buy direct from local farmers, and we have a menu that we follow, and that menu is based on availability. Keep in mind that most of my work was in California when we had a long growing season. Of course, we don't have that here in Virginia, but we have contracted with 5 farmers. Currently, we just recently hired a farm to school coordinator, and we have grant funds coming to hire a salad bar coordinator. It's our intention to put salad bars in all 141 elementary schools. To date, we did our pilot in April of last school year, and we brought on 9 schools this year. At the end of the school year, we'll have on 20, and then we'll bring up 31 a year for the next 4 years. And so the produce for now is brought into our 9 base kitchens, where we process what we can there and then send it out to schools. And as I talked about earlier, there's a lot that goes on. Providing kids access to healthy fruits and vegetables alone aren't enough. There has to be teaching components, connecting the cafeteria to the classroom, to the gardens, to the farms, teaching kids how the food system works, how to respect the earth, and to take care of their bodies. And there's a logic model that I won't go into. This was put together by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, that if you're interested in learning a lot more about the farmers market salad bar, is what we called it in California. We have now renamed it to the Real Food for Kids salad bar here in Virginia. And the Real Food for Kids organization is a partner that we're teaming up with. They help us with marketing and with nutrition education and other activities. So we're truly partners in this. And this shows you what I was looking for. I think it's important to know that this business model is important because I run my program like it's a business, not as an entitlement program. So if you ask me, does a salad bar make money? No, it does not make money, but that's not why I put it in. I put it in so that we could teach kids to be lifelong healthy eaters and provide them with nutritious meals. the study will show that the salad bar was revenue neutral. I would argue with you that it makes money because you change perceptions about your program, and thus you win the trust of parents, and that increases participation. And we've demonstrated that in 2 previous districts, and that's why I was hired here in Fairfax. So I encourage you to go take a look at that study and take a look at the logic model to see how we've made this work. Here's what the salad bar looks like. What makes our salad bar different from most school districts is that ours is a complete meal. So if you look at the salad bar, a student can get all 5 components and walk away. Every one of our students goes to the salad bar first, and that's what we call it, salad bar first, or SB1. So all 10 schools that we put it in, we have radically changed the way we offer lunch to kids. All kids go through the salad bar, is self-serve. There's an adult on each side to engage and encourage the kids to eat colors. And then from there, if a child wants to, they can go get their slice of pizza. But there's only 1 item on the line. There's only a need for 1 person there, 1 person at the point of sale, and then 2 people on each side of the salad bar. That's a very radical approach that a lot of people had concerns with. I assure you, I've been through 5 audits and passed all 5. Health departments are fine with it. Principals and teachers are delighted, as well as parents and the students in our district with it. What we're seeing is during the first week, we let every teacher eat free because we want teachers to model the behavior. They love it. We have pilots where we're giving teachers lunch free on Fridays, again, to encourage kids to model their teachers, and we're seeing participation rise in those schools. So we're very encouraged and are online to see the same thing happening here at Fairfax that we saw in my previous district, where when I went in, we were feeding 47% of the kids before we put salad bars in and made changes to fresh and local. Here, when I left, we were feeding 68% of the kids. To date, we're feeding 44% in Fairfax, but by the end of the year, we expect to see very different numbers at the end of this school year. So we're really encouraged. Here's another look. If you notice, I like to say the salad bar appeals to the senses. We buy with our eyes. It's pleasing to look at. It's colorful. Kids will make choices, good, healthy choices, and the adults are there to make sure that they encourage them to do that. The resources that you need, and I'm going to go through these a little faster. Some of you may be familiar with it, but you can go back and take a look at it. And again, if you have any questions, email me is the best way, and I can make my farm to school director available. And as I said to you, soon we'll have a salad bar coordinator. We've hired our nutrition education educator and a chef. And so our farm to school, our salad bar, our nutrition educator, and our chef will work in concert to build our program so that we're teaching lifelong healthy habits. And that's modeled after the work that I did in the previous school districts that weren't as large, and we may not have had as big a team. We had a farm to school coordinator, who also served as the salad bar coordinator in my previous district, and they work with the chef and the coordinator. There's training that has to be done. The materials that you need to purchase, you can look for grants. Our salad bar coordinator in this district will be funded by a grant. They were funded by grants in the 2 previous school districts I was in, like this one, for the first 2 years, and then we're able to absorb it because we've been able to demonstrate that the salad bar does make money, that we do increase it, and it covers the cost of the salad bar coordinator ongoing. And then the one-time cost, we're receiving grant funds for some of that. All of the 141 salad bars we need in our district will be covered by the grant that we're receiving from the farm to Let's Move Salad Bars to School. They're going to fund all 141 salad bars, and the Lifetime Foundation is providing the grant for the salad bar coordinator. Here's a look at the salad bar etiquette that we make available to teachers. This is very important. It goes to teachers, they go over it with the kids. We then have many assemblies where classrooms are dismissed 3 at a time, and we have a abbreviated salad bar where kids are able to, after lunch, come in and able to get samples, and we reinforce the salad bar etiquette, and that addresses concerns that many of you might have around sanitation and safety and all of that. It works very well. And I talked about the testing. Here's a picture of that. And then the implementation, how it works in getting started. You can go through that. We set up meetings with the principal first, then we go to staff meetings and go over it with teachers and answer questions. They will have already been issued the salad bar etiquette, then the test tasting, and then we start up and go through. Here we talk a little bit about locating farmers or the farmers market, and we've done a lot of that, and that's continuous. We're always looking. In Fairfax, we could tell every farmer in the state of Virginia will buy everything they grow, and we still wouldn't have enough. But it works out really well on the request for proposals, where we have been able to tell farmers. We have one farmer, for example, who said, listen, I'll grow 15,000 pounds of carrots and 7,000 pounds of squash, and we could assure that farmer that we would buy everything. And but for us, we think local. I can tell every local farmer will buy what they grow. Not a whole lot of local farmers in Fairfax, but throughout the state, we'll be buying from chicken farmers, pork farmers, state farmers. So it's not just produce. And our motto is, we want you to think, when you think of Fairfax, think of fresh and local to the extent that we can, provided we will. So that's part of it. And then the operation of the salad bar, the design of the menu, we have that up on our website. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Here is a sample of what one would look like. And again, that'll be made available to you. And then some of the specials that we do, like we'll have during the winter, it will be a cup of soup, salad and sandwich. It could be a potato bar. It'll be culturally appropriate. So we'll, if it's a Latino area, geographical area, it might be Nacho Day, or and so on and so on. So we begin the marketing plan, and in Fairfax, we have the good fortune to work with Real Food for Kids, and they do a lot of our marketing for us and with us. And they're there when we provide the in-service training, and they're there when we do the grand opening. We've had the undersecretary for the USDA come out and open our initial pilot site, and in some cases we've had local dignitaries such as our senator and a representative come to one of our openings, and we have PTAs and parents that are involved, and the Real Food for Kids are involved in helping us develop programs to educate kids. We're working with a local doctors group that is interested in how can they help us educate parents and so forth. And so that's in its early stages. But hopefully a year from now, I'd be able to talk to you more about how we've been able to expand our program. And really, you need to know, I believe that we can be a catalyst for change. You're not going to beat up on the work that I've done for over 30 years. And we're professionals, and we know how to deliver healthy food to children. We are involved with the Lifetime Foundation in eliminating the 7 ingredients of concern, be it saturated fats, colors, and dyes. We all know that these things are in packaged food, and history has shown us we don't know. We know what's in it. We know it's not good for us. We know that our kids are obese, and we have, in my mind, a moral obligation and a responsibility to reform school food. And I've been involved in that for well over 20 years now, and believe that it can be done. And if you look under educating students, here are some of the ways that we've done it with Harvest of the Month and school gardens and visiting farms and chef visits and cooking carts and so forth. And I think the keys to success, if you're interested in that, is again support of the administration and the school board. That part was easy for me. I was hired to reform. There was an assessment done in this school district by an outside consultant, and that assessment was sent to me when they asked would I be interested in the position. And when I got finished reading the assessment and I talked to the headhunter and he asked what I thought about it, I said the only thing was missing was a picture of me in the back of it. This job was well suited for my skill set. And, you know, I've been very fortunate. The superintendent, when I interviewed with her, said, I can't offer you the job, but I can tell you that if you accept the job, you'll have the full force of the superintendent behind you. And I can tell you that I've had that. So whether it's the school board, the administration, principals, teachers, parents, and students, I feel like a politician who just shakes hands and hug babies because of the support that I've gotten. And, you know, I have a track record of doing this kind of thing. So the funders are out there if they know that you're willing to make change. I can tell you the Lifetime Foundation has given money to Detroit public schools, to Minneapolis public schools, and I didn't call them. They called me and asked what would I do with the money, and I shared with them what I do, and I'm nearly close to signing the contract with them now. You have to be flexible. You've got to be willing to be out of your comfort zone. You've got to know that solid bars are not an exact science. We're gonna order too much in the beginning. We're gonna run out sometime, but in time we get very good at it, and we teach children. And what we found is there's less waste because they're able to make their own choice and only take what they're going to eat. And you know, we have the duty to make sure that it's revenue neutral. I can tell you in my 2 previous districts I went in, they had a history of losing money. The last one was in debt for the amount of $3.1 million when I went in. And when I left, in 13 years, we had only lost money one time. And we paid off the $3.1 million and had a reserve of 5.1. And they were remodeling the central kitchen when I left. Here, we've had some struggles. In my first year, we've made money. This year, we expect to make money again. And I have every confidence that over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to make money while we change perceptions about what school food is. Here are some of the barriers that I know some of you will face. Acquiring startup funds, the bureaucratic policies and procedures, and being inflexible. I've had the good fortune that even though I won't tell you I'm an outside the box thinker. I tell you I never get in the box. I hate bureaucratic organizations, and I challenge them. And here it's been very good because, you know, Fairfax is a cutting edge school district in terms of education, and they've been very comfortable. The superintendent put out the word that you don't tell this gentleman what you can't do, you tell him how we can do it. So I've had a luxury that many of you may not have. So you do have to get out and talk to everybody about what it is you want to do, even your unions if you have them. The work is labor intensive, and yet my approach creates jobs, it creates more hours. I've got employees working 12 months who were 10. We're looking at labor and increasing labor for people because we've implemented breakfast in the classroom, salad bars, the supper program, the fresh fruit and vegetable. We're looking at every way possible to make our food fresher and increase. Yes, it increased workloads, but it increases employees' ability to get 8 hours and have a livable wage also. And you also are going to have challenges with upfront food and labor, but I will tell you this. If you're struggling as a program now and you're going to continue to do the same thing you've always done, expect to get the same results and continue losing money. I would tell you that if we were going into a business, we would have to put up money up front before we ever made a dime. And the same is true that if you're going to reform your nutrition program. We are putting in barbecues. We're doing outdoor barbecues in middle and high schools and rotationals in elementary schools. Those salad bars in the middle and high schools come at $2,000 to $10,000 each, and we have commitment to put them in 58 schools. We have them in 2, and we have 11 that are coming on in the spring, and they're signing up for next year. So we're making the commitment because the history that I have has shown me that the model that I put together works. We have our first rotisserie chicken oven in one of our high schools, and we intend to expand on that. The architects have put that into the plans as they go into remodel secondary schools. So I already know the second school that it's going into. And then there's additional issues that you'll have to address around purchasing, bid price, invoicing, payments, staffing, volunteers, and your delivery system. I would argue that if you're a big school district, or even small, because I did it in a very small 15 school district, that we already are well positioned in terms of transportation. And if you have a central kitchen, you're in a good way. If you're not, then there's some issues that you'll have to deal with there as well, and I understand that. And you can go to USDA's website. Minnesota University has good information. There is a plethora of information and resources for you to go out and get help. The barrier is not knowing how to do it. The barrier is how do we make it work for us? And so it's self-serve, all you can eat. Kids have made choices. And for those of you who are concerned about safety and sanitation, here's what I'll say to you, is I have been directly involved in 10 million meals being served off the salad bar to the students, and I haven't lost a child yet. So the outcomes, and I'm going to end there, are, because I want you to have questions, I hope you have questions that I can help you with, is that we've changed perceptions about school food service. We're not the butt of jokes, that we're involved in the community. We're connecting the cafeteria to the classroom, to the gardens, to farmers. We've created a market for them. In my previous school district, in year 1, we had 3 farmers. We spent $10,000 each on each farmer. When I left 13 years later, we had 19 farmers. We spent $450,000, or 1/3 of the food we purchased came from local farmers, and it would have been more, except for as you get bigger, like we are here in Virginia. We're not going to be able to deal with small farmers much. We need to deal with cooperatives, and we're talking with people out of DC and in Maryland and in Philadelphia with Common Market, who is very well versed in food hubs. And so what we will be able to do is go to our distributors and tell them that we want you working with our local farmers too and helping them in their distribution, because small farmers aren't in the distribution business. So with that said, I'm going to turn it back over for questions. And because I do have more slides, they're basically pictures of how we work with connecting farms. And it's a win-win-win for the schools, for the farmers, more important for our children.
Rodney, wow, thank you so much. What amazing work you are doing, Lindsey, that you're doing as well. So fantastic to see you tie this back to money that is being made, as well as to nutritional health and education, and the way that you're including decision makers and the students in the process and parents is just really a fabulous model. So thank you so much for sharing. We do have quite a few questions for you, and we are getting close to the end here. So I'm going to just share one and let you all know that we are having a follow-up conference call with Rodney and Lindsey in a couple of weeks. We will be sharing that information with you. It's going to be on the February 16th from 1 to 2. All of you are welcome, and we will also share your questions with our presenters afterwards. But the one question for you, Rodney, before turning it over to Yona, is how do you encourage farm-to-school policies, procedures, and districts that are limited with resources, time, staff, money, and motivation? And that the folks that may not see the benefit of farm-to-school just intuitively.
Well, in the small district where I started the first farm-to-school program, there was just myself, my secretary, and a operations manager when we decided to start the program. So a lot of the legwork was done by me, or calls made by my secretary. I would go to the local farmers market and introduce myself and talk to farmers. The reason we called it the farmers market salad bar is because I literally went to the farmers market and purchased my goods. That's where I negotiated. And I'd have my driver show up at the market, and we'd load up the truck and take it back to the initial school. So it was one school in the beginning. I would encourage anyone that's interested to start small. Everything that I've done over my 30 years in school food service, my motto is slowly and thoughtfully. We went into the one school, we worked out all of the bugs. You're gonna have failures. I've failed so many times I can't even remember how many before we perfected. And I can tell you, even when I came here after 20 years of doing it, every school district is different, every board is different, every administration. The challenges are going to be there. What I'll tell you is, if you have the will to do this, there's a way. And I love to say, if you want to do something, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. And it really comes down to that. Anybody who would want to argue differently, I'd love to spend time with them one-on-one and banter back and forth about every challenge that they face that I've met over the 20 years that I've been involved. And I want you to know that when I did the small district, everyone said, oh, that's a small district. And that was an affluent district. So I didn't have money. I was struggling to get these rich people, those kids, to spend money with us. Then I went to a high free and reduced school district. Now I'm in one of the 10 largest school districts in the country, and it's very affluent, only 28% free and reduced. No money. We've lost money for the last 5 years. And as a matter of fact, they had lost $5 million in the previous 3 years. And I made $1 million in year one. And I'll love to talk to you in 5 years to talk about our history here. So it really comes down to a will. I want to say this, it's hard work. This isn't for the faint of heart. This is hard work, and I get people who are committed to changing the food system and ensuring that the next generation of children have the opportunity to outlive this generation and have lived not only a long life, but a quality life.
Rodney, thank you so much for that inspiring insight into the strategies that you're implementing and that you have been implementing for decades, and your commitment to children's health and community health. And Lindsey, combined with your inspirational research, it's just an incredible first foray for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network to be moving, to be supporting some of the work on school food. I just want to reiterate our huge thanks to the presenters, and not only for this webinar, but for the follow-up video conference that we'll be having in 2 weeks. Everyone is welcome. Registration information is up here. You can find out more information about this and other upcoming events at ChesapeakeFoodshed.net. We'll be sending out an email in the next week with a recording and links, the additional questions, and a follow-up survey, and again, an invitation to please sign up. We'll have about 45 spots for this video conference, so sign up soon. And Lindsey and Rodney have graciously and generously agreed to be invited participants for that conversation, so we can hopefully extend this and continue to dig into this rich and deep topic. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.